Hi! So today was actually going to be a video for a new print based off my moon print, which I wanted to create into a series of prints following the same kind of format with the vintage style and the squares, because I was so happy with how this came out. It was something really different from what I've done before, and it was just one of those times where something comes out how you intended it to. So I wanted to continue it as a series, and I did a poll on Instagram and fungi/mushrooms won. So I've been working on that for the last week, but I'm really not happy with how it's turning out. And I was thinking maybe it's just me being too much of a perfectionist. I'm never often very happy with how my art turns out, or if I am happy with it, it takes a couple of days for me to not be happy with it. So I was like, am I being too much of a perfectionist? But I've decided that no, I need to give myself more time to fix it and maybe recreate some of the sections of paintings in the print, because it just really isn't what I wanted it to look like. And when I look back at the moon print, I don't think it feels the same part of the series as the moon print. So I'm going to give myself more time with that, and hopefully it should be done within the next week or two if things turn out okay. But I thought I'd do something quick for today's video, because I haven't got as much time as I thought I would have, as the print that I've basically done and videoed would be today's video. So now I haven't got much time, so I thought let's do something quick. So I went through Procreate and in the library to see if there were any designs that I've done that were quick to paint. As I mentioned in the last video with the Halloween print, I've designed some other spooky inspired prints as well, and a couple of them are a bit simpler and are black and white prints. So I thought, let's take one of them. There's not really any background to it, it's a simpler design, and even though I've tried it before and it didn't work out, I was struggling with the paper I was using then and ended up not liking that paper. So I've got a new watercolour paper now that I'm really happy with. So I thought let's try it again, and hopefully if everything goes to plan, it shouldn't take me too long to actually make this. So that's the plan for today's video. Hopefully the fungi print will be done in the next week or two, but I thought let's just carry on that Halloween train that we're already on and do something a little bit spooky again. So I'm going to transfer the design on my iPad onto some watercolour paper, and then it should just be watercolour and pencil that I'm going to be using today, and then digitally enhancing, editing it afterwards. So let's see how it goes. Considering this piece was meant to be really quick because I was losing time, my external hard drives ended up wanting attention for some reason, or not wanting attention as it was, because my laptop would not recognise them when I plugged them in any way, and I couldn't move on and create my piece until I'd removed all the footage already on my SD card onto an external hard drive. So fortunately I managed to fix that eventually, but it took up a lot of time, as technology likes to do. My printer especially likes to have tantrums at the worst of times. But like I said, fortunately, after scouring through the internet trying to find other people crying for help, I found some answers that managed to fix my hard drive. So once I was finally able to start my piece, I was eager to get going, and I'm very pleased with how this piece turned out. It was my second attempt on the new watercolour paper, as I mentioned before, and it is much more fitting to the kind of style of art I'm trying to make and the process that I go through to create art. I've tried various different types of watercolour paper now, but a really good quality, and that's where I've been going wrong. I realised for a while I thought I was getting good enough quality on the cheaper end, but I've been struggling with the paper being unpredictable. I'd buy one pad of paper and it would be fine, and then the next pad from the exact same shop, the exact same pad make, texture, etc., and it was reacting to the paint in completely different ways and was getting blotchy. And I would test the same paint on the same brush with the two papers, with the two pads, the exact same, they should be the exact same pads, and they were reacting differently to the paper. So I decided to go searching for new paper, and although that has become costly and I have bought paper that I'm not going to use, maybe I'll try and use it again at some point to see if it works for me, but that trial and error has got me to a company and a paper texture that really works for me, and I'm finding it so much easier to control the paint on this paper. Before it was drying so quickly and any big space that had to be filled in would become very blotchy, because if I wasn't quick enough at moving the paint, it would start drying and then would obviously overlap and create a very unsmooth surface, which I don't mind a little bit in watercolour. That's the charm of watercolour, but it was looking very messy. But with this new paper, I can't believe the difference it makes. So I definitely recommend, if you can, investing in a higher quality water paper, because it does make a massive difference and gives you so much more control. So I think the combination of this new paper that I'm really enjoying, and the fact that I've already tried to create this piece once a few weeks ago on the different paper, and I feel like I learned from mistakes that I made there when recreating this piece, I feel like it all came together and flowed very easily, and I ended up with something that I am very happy with. And I also feel that I learnt a lot from the process of creating this piece and what I'd like to take forward when creating watercolours. One thing in particular that I've gained from creating this piece is how to use masking fluid. So as you saw, I applied masking fluid to create the moon and the stars in the background of the window. So when I was painting the dark sky there, it was protecting the bits that I didn't want to paint, so when it's removed, those will still be the colour of the paper underneath. I have used masking fluid before, I've had it for a little while now, but was struggling to get control of it how I wanted to, and then ended up really ruining one of my brushes using it. But I decided today to go through the kitchen drawer to see if I could find anything useful, and used a sort of long cocktail stick to create the small dots and lines and to fill in the moon on this piece. And it worked so much better than when I've used a brush before. It was much more precise and I could clean it off very easily, whereas before it was getting stuck in the hairs of the brush. Now I might be doing something wrong with the brush. It's not anything that I've really looked up to fix. I just thought I'd try this cocktail stick. Well, it's like a long I don't even know what it's for, to be honest. It's just something I found in the kitchen drawer, but I'd recommend like a cocktail stick if you wanted to try it yourself, because it really worked for me, and it's the first time that it's actually worked, whereas before in some of my other pieces I've just struggled to go around details that I wanted to be left blank rather than using the masking fluid, because it ended up ruining the image every time. But I'll definitely be using it going forward now. The other thing that I learned from this piece is that I think I like to have quite precise lines in a way, lines that show up anyway, which I feel like I lost a little in my Halloween piece. There wasn't something quite right with my lines there, something I didn't like. I'm still not sure what wasn't working for me there, but some of my favourite pieces that I've done with watercolour, this and the moon print, the lines are really clear and precise, and that's something I want to try and keep recreating. I find it harder to do when I'm using crayons and I'm painting in colour, so that's something I need to practice, but it's something I've realised I really like the effect of. I always scan my watercolours in and edit them and enhance them digitally. Here I add a more vintage colour to the paper, a slightly yellower, darker colour, and then deepen any shadows. And I like to use a feathered brush for any shadows as well, as I feel that creates more depth, and I like the slow transition from the dark to the light rather than a really blunt transition. So using a feather brush helps me to soften out any of that, although I do try to do it with watercolour anyway. I also make any changes and tweaks there with any errors that I've had in the watercolour, and with this I realised that I'd missed a couple of lines out that I wanted with the stars, so I copied lines that I've already got there and moved them to where I wanted them and changed them a little to make them look a little different from what's already there. So I was much happier with the stars in the background after I'd done that. Overall, as this was a black and white piece and it was small, and I was very happy with how the actual physical drawing itself came out, I ended up not having to do too much work with it digitally. But here is the result. You can buy this as a print on my shop. I'm also thinking of reopening my Etsy store with my new prints on. I'll put a link in below if that is something that I do. So thank you for watching. I hope you like this piece, and I'll see you next week.